All right. So, due to the length of our chat that we had about the football over the Easter weekend, we've decided to split up into two episodes: the AFL and VFL wraps. The AFL one went quite long in the end, and we went into a bit of detail for the VFL as well. So we're separating them, and we do sort of, for what we've seen, have a slightly different audience as well for the two. So yeah, here is the VFL wrap up for round two versus Collingwood. Do we want to get to the VFL now?
Yeah, sure. We might have to make this one a bit rapid.
Uh, Look, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 points that I've written down in my notes,
Wow.
and two of them are pretty small. So the first
Yep.
one, actually, this is the last one on my list, but I just want to bring it up first.
Sure.
Because you weren't watching on TV, you were there, but
No, I was there. I saw it all.
yeah, the commentators were terrible. Like, and there's a lot of stuff across all the Facebook pages, and it's not just
Mm.
our people,
Yep.
people that supported Collingwood as well, saying this one, the main commentator was just all over. He made BT look like he couldn't care less about Collingwood. This guy was all over him.
Hmm.
Continually, he would scream at the top of his lungs if Collingwood breathed.
Gosh.
And when one of our guys did anything, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, Kyle Lehman just kicked a goal."
Mm.
Except for one or two of our players who just happened to be from Sherwood, which is
Yep.
his home club.
Mm.
And he did ramble on a lot about Sherwood quite a bit during the game as well, a bit too much for my liking.
So I have a interesting story about Sherwood, just as a side note.
Yeah,
So the Sherwood Magpies, they're kind of a sister club, kind of a, not really feeder for Collingwood, but they're affiliated. They have a relationship with Collingwood. It's not a super strong relationship, but
yeah,
it's there. Um, Now, my late grandfather on my maternal side was an ex-president of the Sherwood Magpies. Not,
oh, yeah.
you don't know that. I've never told you that before.
No, you haven't.
And yeah, so he was heavily involved in the Sherwood Magpies, and um, in the 80s and stuff, he would have very important football figures around his house before I was born, obviously. But my mother, who is a diehard Collingwood fan, and my uncle, who is a diehard Collingwood fan to this day, they both tell me stories about a lot of big names hanging around their house growing up, just because of the relationship from the Sherwood Magpies. So my grandfather's no longer with us. He died quite a while ago, actually. But yeah, interesting little side note there that
Well,
my family does have a connection to the Sherwood Magpies.
there you go. And aren't you lucky your dad was a Bear supporter
Yes.
and
Oh, I'm
a
so grateful.
and a big fan of Lynchy?
Yep.
So yeah, that's just my whinge, but everyone's had that whinge. And yeah, so what did you make of the game at ground level?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was a bit of an arm wrestle for a lot of it. I mean, there was
Yeah,
some strong periods where we dominated for a while, but then we just kind of let it go, took our foot off the pedal in the last part, and they caught up and kicked, 4 or 5 in a row at some stage. And then, you know, obviously the final result is 105 to 103. So both teams had quite a good game.
yeah,
That complaint that we have about the senior team was creeping in to their strategy of the VFL team too, where you kind of, they get 5 goals up or whatever, and then they get kind of confident and they just don't try as much. The interpretation from the fans is that they're not trying as much
yeah,
because they get comfortable and they get confident and they just go, oh well, it's already over, and then the other team gets 5 easy goals, and then suddenly it's neck and neck with the siren going potentially at any minute. And we had a 37-minute last quarter.
yes. I
Um,
did notice that
so
we had a few 30-minute quarters actually.
Oh, it was insane. And the reason I kept track of the timing so much is because I did have my young kids with me, as well as my partner and my dad, who's in town for Easter. And we all went along. And we were keeping track of how long the quarters were going because the kids would want to go, go and do stuff and get food and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
we were keeping track and we were going, oh yeah, well the quarter should only be this many more minutes, and then the quarters were blowing out to well past what they should have been. So long quarters. It was a long game, and particularly that last quarter, the siren went at about 37 minutes.
But there was a lot of goals in the last quarter, I guess. But
there was.
I noticed when it was about 23 minutes in, the main commentator was like, all right, so there's 10 minutes to go here. And it ended up being 14 minutes. And I mean, okay, you allow time on for stoppages and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, someone from Collingwood kicked 6. A lot of Joe the Goose sort of goals, but I think that's just his job. He wasn't a key forward.
So that was Joe Richards.
Yeah, that's right. And something I did like, so young Jeff, I thought he did pretty good for them, but the commentators actually called him by his name, unlike the AFL commentators with his brother. There's always just like Gary Lyon shoots me to tears. CJ, I can't pronounce his name, mate. It's GF. It's not that hard.
Yeah, it's not. It's really
it's
not
the same amount of syllables as Lion. So come on, mate. But yeah, look, from our point of view, what did you make of Lyons? I thought he obviously was prolific statistic wise, but I didn't feel he was as dominant as his statistics showed, or really affected the scoreboard as much. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I kind of disagree with that a little bit. He had a much more of a mentoring role to some of the younger guys. There was a key bit of play right at the end, at the 35-minute mark, when we were a couple of points up on Collingwood, and I thought, oh geez, we could lose this. There was a young fella from our academy named Liam Hughes who caught an unbelievable mark on the boundary and was kicking at a really uncomfortable angle, and he was looking to rush it. Lyons ran over to him and just said, just slow it down and just take your time and just kick the goal. And I didn't hear him say that, but that's basically the body language of what I interpreted was happening.
Yeah, you're
he took his time.
Paraphrasing a bit.
Yeah, and he took his time and he slotted the goal from a really tricky angle. And this is a young fellow with not much experience.
Was that Liam Hudd?
Yeah, Hudd or Hughes, H-U-D-E.
Oh, the commentators kept saying Hudd, so I'll run with that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going phonetically on how it's based. I've never heard his name said.
Yeah.
But he slotted it through, and then we were 8 points up, and then they kicked another goal, and then we only won by 2 points. But it was a crazy last quarter. And that fella you were talking about before who kicked 6 goals, Joe Richards.
Yep.
Looking at the stats now, 4 of his 6 goals were in the last quarter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One being the very last one of the game.
Yeah, and look, just with Lions too, and I guess we had the same thing the week before when I was at the ground and you were watching on TV or one of your devices or whatever. I actually, my 13-year-old showed me how to get my iPhone projecting to the TV, so I got to watch on TV this week. But long story short, you don't get to see everything on TV.
No, definitely not.
You only see what the director wants you to see.
Yeah, whatever's happening with the ball at that moment.
Yeah. So that's where you can look at it and go, well, yeah, this bloke's got 35, but I don't know. They didn't really show him or talk about him much in the commentary. And
that's why I never pick my player of the week based purely on stats.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go 2 minutes before the podcast. I could go, Neil's got 35. That's a good game. He must have been our player of the week. No, I go, who put in the most effort, who felt like they were the most important, even if they did, a lot of the important stuff was off the ball, that's why the stats are whatever. And, I don't play fantasy footy or anything like that. And that's kind of where the stats are more important. But it just, effort is a big one for me. And what you're giving to the team.
And that's just quickly, I'll just quickly brush on this. And it's just agreeing with you, I guess. The umpires voting on the Brownlow, never having the stats in front of them, I think that's really important because the umpires are out there on the ground and they can see things that we can't.
Yeah.
And I think 9 times out of 10 they get it right.
I'd agree with that for the most part. I mean, if they just went, Tom Mitchell's, he had the ball a lot. Lachie Neale's had the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Then they would just it would just be whoever your best midfielder is would be, and I guess it does work out that way sometimes, but some of the times when Brownlow winner wins, it's like a mid forward or things like that.
Yeah.
So some guys that have the ability to turn a game, whereas some guys just get high numbers and they don't feel like they have as much impact.
Yeah, and so just continuing on. So, and this again, it's talking about the sort of the inside midfielders in a sense. So Jimmy Tunstall, not as many disposals this week, but still a lot. But I thought, from what I could see on TV, very effective at the stoppages.
Definitely.
Second most stoppage clearances on the ground with 9. I think one guy got 11. Lyons was next with 7. So he's right up there, and that's something I like seeing that. I like seeing a guy getting in and winning the ball.
Yeah, I mean, like his stats weren't jumping off the page as much as they were last week, but he was still one of our most important players, and he still had a banger of a game.
Yeah. I really think he's really knocking on the door. He's absolutely cherry ripe right now to get into the senior team, and North Melbourne. I mean, they've been pretty good. Like, I know they haven't won a game. They've been pretty good, but there's still a lot of young guys who are learning the game this year as well. They're playing a lot of 2 or 3 year players in the mids and so forth. This could be a chance for Jimmy to go up against, I guess, effectively the same sort of quality of opposition he's playing against in the VFL, but on a bigger stage. And,
I would love for him to get a senior game. And he's absolutely banging the door down. And I think if he doesn't get many chances this year, I think the Eagles will come for him. And that door that he's banging down is going to get slammed shut behind him on his way out.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, he's an East Perth boy who have over the years had an affiliation with the Eagles. But not only that, anyone from Western Australia, they're going to be looking at who's got 3 or 4 years of development in him.
He's the perfect kind of guy that they go for.
Yeah, and they're building. They're going to build they got obviously Harley Reid, but they got Ruben Jinby, who's an absolute beast, and Elijah Hewitt as well in their midfield over there. With, as I said, Harley Reid's going to develop into a midfielder.
Oh yeah, but they'll be building for another 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, and they would love to have a guy like Tunstall. Well, if Patrick Cripps was 5 years younger, Patrick Cripps, one of those guys that can get in and win the ball at ground level.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope our club does the right thing by Jimmy and looks after him.
Yeah, me too. I rate him highly.
Yeah. So Lohman. We talked about him. This is almost the Kai Lohman fan cast.
Yeah. Well, I've always had a soft spot for him since he was drafted. But he was. I mean, do you rate possessions? Do you rate goals? Do you rate off the ball stuff? How do you rate a guy having an absolute blinder of a game? Is it kicking 4 goals in a game? I think that's a pretty good metric to see if someone had a good game or not.
Yeah, look,
I guess 4.1. So
I guess if you look at it and sort of say, well, I mean, back when I was a kid and you had Tony Lockett, Jason Dunstall, those guys, people used to say 2 goals a quarter is pretty bloody good for a key forward. Now, he's not a key forward. So for him to kick 1 goal a quarter, that's pretty much on that same sort of metric as that. And that's to me is a blinder. But, he does a lot of stuff. He competes hard and always sort of, I know people say he's just trying to be flashy, but I think he just wants to get in there. A bit like Tom Berry back in the day, he didn't get a pretty good end result from it, but he was always jumping into packs, trying to get the ball, hitting tackles, that sort of thing. I think Lohman's sort of that same sort of guy, but I think he's a class above Tom Berry.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's got a bit more X factor than Tom Berry does.
Yeah, and actually, interestingly, I met Lohman in the crowd at Cardinia Park his first year at the club. He was actually in the crowd watching. He must have been like an emergency or something, and he was watching the game, sitting near our cheer squad, and I met him in the crowd. I didn't even realise who he was at first. I just saw a guy in a Lions jacket walk past. How you going? It's a bit like your Cam Ellis-Yeoman story, which will come out in a few days in another chat. But how you going, mate? And he's like, oh yeah, and he looked at me like he was waiting for me to asking for a photo or an autograph, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit, that's Kyle Lohman. I'm like, oh, how you going? Like, oh, I wish you were out there, mate. And he's like, yeah, give me a couple of weeks, and yeah, but like, I thought, yeah, I thought he was dynamic, played really
Yeah.
well. He obviously had a point to prove, and I think he proved it.
Hmm. I ran into him. I think it was the beginning of last year. He was having I think he had a foot injury or something at the time. It was pretty early in the season, and he was at the tail end of his foot injury, and he was, close to coming back. I think it was a training I went to, or maybe it was a VFL game or something like that. And I walked past him, and he was just walking by himself. I think he was coming from the gym or something like that. And I was with my kids, and I said, "Hey, Kai, how you going?" He's like, "Yeah, good, mate." And I said, "I can't wait to see you out there." And his face lit up. He was so happy that someone was excited for him personally as a
Yeah,
player. So I think he really appreciated that. And I mean, I've only had the one interaction with him, but it was a great interaction, and I like him a lot.
yeah, that was the same vibe I got from him that time at Cardinia Park as well. Like he just, he just wants to be out there. He wants to be a part of it.
Oh yeah,
Even when he got drafted, like him and Wilmot, when they were doing those sort of post-draft videos and stuff on the club's socials, you might not have seen them, but him and Wilmot just looked like full of energy and really
oh yeah,
just jumping out of their skins to get out there. And a guy who looks to have a lot of energy, and he's been around our VFL team for a few years, is Bruce Revel, or
yep.
Rebel, as the commentators kept calling
Oh
him.
God, I can only imagine.
I thought they were talking about someone else at first. And,
Yeah,
yeah, I thought he looked good and
yeah.
sort of worked into the game really well both weeks, and again this week.
He would have been in my top 5 players for the game for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you think he sits in the scheme of things? Like, do you think because
So
he's a bit older and a bit more mature than the other guys?
yeah, so he was an overager through the academy.
Yeah,
We didn't pick him up. He was eligible a couple of years ago, and we kind of overlooked him, chucked him on our VFL list for a couple of years, and then I was pretty surprised when we gave him a shot last year. He's just a rookie on the rookie list at the moment, so he technically can play a senior game,
yeah,
but he's a bit raw, but he's definitely got something. Like
yeah.
he's had a couple of really good VFL games over the year, but he hasn't really been able to make most of them line up in a row. Like he'll go quiet for a couple of games and then he'll have another one that's really good. I remember I was watching I think it was a curtain raiser or something. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was 2 seasons ago when he was still on the VFL list, and he got interviewed because he had such a great game. He kicked like 5 goals or something incredible, and he got
Yeah.
interviewed after the game, and they were talking about how he works nights as a meat packer and all this sort of stuff, and so that was good to get a bit of insight to who he is. But in terms of where he fits on the list, I think he's a quick player and he's a good decision maker. He could be a good chuck-in replacement for McKenna and Coleman,
Yeah,
but he's a bit green. But yeah, I mean, it can't hurt really.
yeah.
What do you think about him?
So I just wanted to say something else before I get into that. So, and I'm going to apologise to anyone if I get this wrong, because it's something you want to get right. But I think is his heritage South Sea Islander, maybe.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, look, and that just sort of makes me think. So Mel Meninga, obviously being a Queenslander, you'll notice Mel Meninga. And I think, is it Dustin Hodges?
What was that? You cut out a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. I think, is it Justin Hodges? Is that
Uh,
another rugby league player's name?
yeah, there's a few rugby players I know against my will.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, their name sounds familiar,
And
but I know Mel Malinga quite a
I
lot.
reckon Wendell Saylor, guys that have got that South Sea Islander background. There's a lot of people in Queensland with that background, and they were like absolute superstar sportsmen. Like,
yeah, Rebel could be. I'm not too sure.
Skills and like, I mean, yeah, like, it just makes me think like this guy's probably got the best sporting genes you can probably get just from his heritage. Certainly a lot better than me having Vikings and vodka drinkers for Russia, but
Yeah,
um,
those UK genetics aren't good for a lot, are they?
no, well, yeah, but Yeah, look, I like him. I like the cut of his jib. I love
I
his
do,
hair.
yeah.
I love his hairstyle as well.
Mm.
Looks amazing when he's running around.
He's quick
Um,
and he's a good decision maker, and that's one thing
yeah,
I definitely solidified my opinion of him in the VFL game. He's
yeah.
definitely top five for me.
He's deceptively quick. Like you look at him, and
Yeah,
he's kind of like that guy that I guess at face value doesn't look like he's moving fast, but I guess it's sort of the efficiency of his movement that does. Like he looks so clean and poised that he moves. He ends up covering the ground and getting out of tough positions. Like
it's like Hugh McCluggage because Hugh
yes,
McCluggage isn't fast, but he has this moment where it's like time slows down around him,
yeah.
and he kind of catches guys off guard, and it looks like he's quicker than he is.
Maybe he's
And
got
I
a
think
basketball
Rebel's got a
background
bit. Oh yeah,
because that's what Scott Pendlebury does, according to the commentators.
of course, yeah,
Yeah, but look, Revel, I really like him.
yeah, me too.
I was glad we picked him up.
Mm,
And I've only seen him live twice. I've seen him on TV a fair bit, or back when the VFL was on Channel 7 down here.
I always love
Um,
academy guys getting a spot
yeah,
to
it's
prove themselves.
like it just shows that they've done the hard yards to come from, like from nowhere, really. They're generally not all private school boys. Like Eric Hipwood went to a public school, state school, I think you call them up there.
Yeah.
I don't know about Ben Keys, but like, yeah, they're not always guys that just get these free handouts at the private schools and stuff like that or
Mm,
whatever. They do the hard yards and get themselves on a rookie list. Like Sam Mitchell at Hawthorn, Dane Zorko with us, like
yeah.
this, Mickey Barlow who played for Freo years back in the Gold Coast. Like guys like that they they get overlooked in drafts or they're just not ready for drafts, but they keep persisting and they get themselves on a rookie spot. Brody Mychek at Collingwood,
Hmm.
um,
Oscar McInerney.
Oscar McInerney. I mean, yeah. Well, when we bring out our recruiting review, dude, we talk
We
about
talked him up quite a
that.
lot. Yeah.
yeah. Like
But
like
he's another one as well.
yeah,
He got
and
a chance and he grabbed it with both hands and never looked
yeah.
back.
And I remember when they first picked Big O as well. He was just there as like a decoy forward.
Yeah.
It was like Stephen Martin was at the top of his game. It was like, all right, Hipwood and McStay are kind of young, they're not ready. So
Mm,
we'll bring in Big O as this big, tall, lumbering guy as a decoy forward. And,
yeah.
look where he's gone now. And, yeah, that's what could happen with Bruce Revel. He could come in and they say, look, we'll bring you in for a couple of weeks to fill a gap. And then they can't drop him because he just keeps playing good footy.
Yep.
Yep.
Hope so. I mean, I'd love to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's
Like,
basically what happened with Coleman as well. I mean, he was
yeah.
rookied after when he was a mature age recruit through the academy. I mean, he wasn't drafted in the right year that he was eligible. He got given a chance on a rookie list, and then he wasn't rookie. No, he got
No,
proper
yeah, I was
drafted,
wondering where you're going with that.
proper national draft. But they kind of threw him a lifeline, and then he didn't get brought in straight away. But when he was brought in, he was permanent best 22 and never looked back.
Yeah, and like
So those are the ones you love to see.
they started him as a small forward as as can happen, but
Mm.
and I thought he was pretty nice in that
He can
role.
kick
But
a great goal, but it's
yeah,
not his
but
strength, as they
yeah,
say.
an opening appeared sort of at halfback, and I think I can't remember what happened, but for some reason he got put there one week, and everyone was losing their mind. He's never played there before, and well, no one's losing their mind anymore. He's a gun.
Yeah.
And speaking of guns, I think this guy's going to be a double barrel shotgun. Is Logan Morris.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Again,
he just keeps smashing it.
yeah,
I mean, we've only got 2 games to go by, but he's had a fantastic 2 games in a row.
yeah. Again, like he had a big presence. He pulled a lot
Hmm.
of alpha male moves out there on the field.
Oh, he can take a
Um,
great grab.
yeah. His kicking's pretty good. And like, yeah, you can see he's already. I don't know if you noticed it this game, but the game I went to, I reckon he was leading a lot, like physically leading, not like running up the ground calling for the ball, but
Yeah.
more like directing guys on where to stand and helping. Like because there was a few guys played out of position that day. Jack Payne, Kalen Lane, and he was sort of pointing them out. This is the right place to be or whatever. And
Mm.
the guy's, I don't even think he's turned 19 yet, and he's already doing
No,
that.
he's still 18.
Yeah, and like I don't see any reason why we can't give him a game other than who does he replace?
Well, he's kicked 3 again.
Yeah.
He kicked 4 last week, and he's kicked 3 this week.
Yeah.
Look, that's pretty incredible. 2 rounds. Like, it is only 2 rounds, but
Yeah.
he was also flying through the preseason as well. And I don't know how much stock you put into preseason games, but he was heavily involved there
Yeah.
too. But look, maybe it ties back to your earlier point about you wanting to put Hipwood on a wing. Maybe he takes Hipwood's spot up front, and Hipwood goes to the wing.
Yeah. I think like my thought with that was maybe Darcy Fort takes Hipwood's spot, or Darcy Fort plays as the deep forward, and Joey comes up as the I guess the roaming centre half forward. But yeah, like I want to see him get in. And again, same with Jimmy Tunstall playing against North Melbourne could be an opportunity for him. They've got a very small defensive group,
Mhm.
very inexperienced defensive group. So that get him in, and I'm not going to say an easy kill, but get him in against guys at his experience level, his maybe his size or smaller as well.
You mean like next week against North Melbourne?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
Hipwood's 203 centimeters, and
yeah,
Morris is 191.
yeah. So they're
So
not really the same. They're not the same sort of
no.
guy, and they don't really play the same sort of role. Morris is more of a bulky sort of marking forward.
Yeah, he's going to be more of a replacement for Dan McStay than anything else.
Yeah, except that I think his role will be to take marks. I think McStay's role was more to get it to Charlie or
Yes.
Lincoln, which I have no arguments with, and I'm sure he was fine with.
Yeah, well, I mean, like he was another key because McStay was defense when we drafted him, wasn't he? And we kind of made him go forward.
I think he played centre half back out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of his early games, very late in Jonathan Brown's sort of time.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon it's probably the last game Brownie played in Melbourne. McStay was playing forward that game, and that was only his first year after he got drafted. So, yeah, back when him and Darcy Gardner were babies.
Yeah, well, I mean, so Darcy Gardner came in at the same time, Louis Taylor. I remember the Buddy because remember we were drafting Buddy Buddies for a few years. So we got in with McStay, we got in Tom Cutler as his Buddy.
Yeah, from the Eastern Rangers, and we had from the Geelong Falcons, Louis Taylor, Darcy Gardner.
That's right.
No, we didn't already have Alan Christensen. I think we got him a year or two later.
Yeah.
Josh Walker came 2 years after that. But they were already mature players. But
geez, we love getting ex-Cats and ex-Crows, don't we? And ex-Hawks.
Yeah, I actually, we talked about this a long time ago about the Hawks thing. I sat down and made a team, and I went back to my whole time of watching VFL, AFL football, which goes back to sort of the mid-'80s.
Yep.
When we started getting VFL games on TV once a week where I lived. And, yeah, there's been a lot of crossover. Fitzroy Bears and Brisbane Lions with Hawthorn coaches as well. That's an episode for the future, I think.
It's interesting stories there for sure.
Yeah, and like the Hawthorn connection won us 3 flags. So yeah, but look, moving on from that because we're hijacking the VFL section. So yeah,
we do go on tangents, don't we?
Yeah. What did you think of Jimmy Madden? I thought he was all right.
I actually didn't think he was that great. He made a lot of errors from what I saw.
Yeah.
He was quick. He wasn't in my top 5 players at all.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have him in my top 5.
I've been wanting to keep an eye on him because I thought, not just the Irish connection, but I thought positionally he was a good replacement for McKenna. But after watching his last 2 VFL games, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. Look, and again, when I say I thought he looked all right, that's probably me saying that he was okay without being damaging or brilliant. But I noticed he took a lot of marks. Now, I'm going to say maybe 8 or 9 marks.
Yeah, look, he's good at getting the ball. He's just not a great decision maker.
Yeah.
And that's a big cross on his game from what I've seen. He's quick, and he's surprisingly good with the ball, like disposal, but he doesn't make good decisions. Like he was passing it to guys, 2-on-1 a lot. And just doing silly things like that. So his decision making's not up there for me.
And the thing with Madden, like he's been playing Australian rules football for 5 years.
Yeah,
Most guys that have been playing the game for 5 years are 12 or 13 years old, and he's
true.
probably about 27. So,
Oh,
um,
he's a bit younger than that, I think. I
is
think
he?
he's only mid-20s, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's younger than
I just pulled a number out of the hat.
that.
I would not have a clue how old Jimmy Madden is, but look, it
He's
couldn't.
24. Just check,
Okay,
24.
there you go. So, look, he could be an option to try. It wouldn't be the worst option, but he obviously is not going to be the best option.
Hmm.
So, just looking at guys who are AFL listed that played, I'm sort of trying to focus on that a bit. But and just on a couple of AFL listed guys who did play, Kalen Lane, Luke Lloyd, I thought was very quiet.
Yeah, so I've got a story about Callum Lane actually.
Go for it.
Um, so he got something happened to him at some stage just before half time, I think it was, where he came off and as he was coming off, he puked everywhere, like
Mm.
on the field coming to the bench. He was puking everywhere,
Okay,
and
yeah, you did message me about that.
I almost didn't notice it, but funnily enough, there was an AFL player from our list that was there. The only one that I saw that was there was Darcy Wilmot, sitting about 3 rows ahead of me, and he was calling out to him as he was puking. But he was absolutely chundering before, like running to the bench from the field.
So,
So
do you think maybe he wasn't well, sort of already, or
I don't know what the goal was. I'm not sure if he got hit or something. I didn't see that, but he
yeah,
came off and he was chundering, and he didn't come back on for another 10 minutes or so. He did come back on, but he didn't come back on for another 10 minutes or so.
yeah? And I recall you saying to me it was pretty warm up there as well.
Yeah, it
So,
was for a bit, but it cooled down as the game went on. But
okay,
the first half was surprisingly hot, but it cooled
yeah,
down and started to actually rain a little bit in the afternoon for the second half.
yeah, okay. So yeah,
So I'm
and
not
what?
sure what that was about.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe if he's been sick, then it might come out in the wash up, I guess. But and
Maybe.
hopefully it's not something that's going to spread around the club. And
No, I mean,
um,
it might have been like maybe he got hit in the gut or something, or he was a
yeah,
bit winded, or who knows? It could have been anything. But I
yeah,
think his counterpart in Henry Smith had a pretty good game.
yeah. Yeah, he sort of seemed to be in a few contests. And again, like no Darcy Fort means that these two guys have got to take on that I guess that alpha role in the ruck.
Hmm.
And yeah, I thought Smith, from what I saw on TV, did pretty well.
Yeah, most of the AFL guys got around 20 to 30 possessions each, so they all got involved, and
Yeah,
none of them had really terrible games. Gardner was pretty good. I mean, his stats aren't fantastic, but I remember thinking
yeah,
he was pretty crucial to a lot of plays. Like he was a great kind of um, doorstop at the end, and
yeah.
he saved a lot of goals.
He did Darcy Gardner things, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Like he's like I've seen a different side to him since Luke Hodge went to the club. He does these little things that no one else does. Like there was one thing he did in this game. He was looking at the guy behind him
Mm.
with one eye, looking at the guy next to him with another eye, and
Hmm.
his left arm went in a completely different direction, punched the ball away, and it went to our advantage. And the commentators are going, "Oh, look at Darcy Gardner. He's got no idea. He's not even looking at the ball." And I'm thinking, mate, he was looking everywhere.
Mm.
And that's what Darcy Gardner does. And I reckon he learned that from Luke Hodge.
Yeah.
What they call like a professional fist or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, there's well, they have on the bounce the golden fist.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do they still do that? I don't even.
I
I
have
don't.
no
I
idea.
don't even
I stopped
watch.
watching that a while ago.
Yeah, like when Nick Dacos won it last year, it was like, yeah, nah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So, what did you make of Luke Lloyd though? Did you think he was
I was
sort of?
actually just about to mention him. So he had a blinder last game, but he
Yeah.
was actually one of our weaker players this
Yep.
game. So he's only got 4 touches for the game,
Yeah, I
and
did see
I only
that.
noticed him once in the game.
So, do you think, obviously, the good form of Loman, Kyle Dunkley kicked 3 goals, looked
Mm.
okay, and
Yep.
he's sort of a bigger body around that forward half. And I thought Liam Hudd, I'm going to call him Liam Hudd because the commentators did, he did a couple of nice things around the forward area as well. Do you think maybe that sort of squeezed Lordy out a bit?
Yeah, well, that Liam fella, who I believe is an academy player,
Yeah,
um, he kicked 2 goals, but he didn't much else in the game. He wasn't heavily involved in anything else.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure what was going on with Luke. I don't know if he got injured or something. I don't think he did. I don't recall. There was a few guys that had some injury scares, like uh, Henry Smith was tugging at his shoulder for a bit, and Jared Lyons was tugging at his knee for a bit, and they were both hobbling. And I thought that they were both going to come off injured, but they both finished the game. So they were the only two guys that I thought may have got injured. But I think Luke just had a bad game.
yeah, and look, it happens when you're
It
you're
does,
that
and
young. Yeah,
it's VFL. It's his second game for the club.
yeah,
You're entitled to, he's in his learning stage. So I'm not gonna pack on heat on him.
yeah,
He's one that I want to watch for the rest of the year and keep an eye on. But he
definitely.
had a blinder last week. Not as good as Morris, but he had a fantastic game. And
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah,
look, I think he's a really big talent with a lot of upside. That's going to be a really good player for the football club going forward. Now, something else I just want to touch on with the VFL, and I messaged you about it. Sent you an amazing photo of my TV screen.
yeah.
Was
Man, you gotta learn how to print. You gotta learn how to to print screen and things like that.
yeah, I thought the
That
ground
was a
looked.
shocker.
Yeah, that was bad. That was like a very early camera phone. This is sort
It
of
was such bad quality. I couldn't work out what I thought you'd accidentally sent me the photo.
yeah. What I was trying to do was zoom up to the ground. I thought it looked a bit choppy.
Yeah, yeah. It is. So I was saying to you kind of in the game that so the ground's used not just for our purposes. It got funding from a couple of tiers of government on the basis that it's a community ground as well. So it gets used all through the week by local teams and all kinds of athletic events and things like that. So the ground was not in good condition. It had
Yeah,
also rained for about a week prior to that, and it only just stopped raining basically the day before the game. Not sure if that had something to do with it, but it was not in good condition. The ground did not look great. The field, I should say, the stadium was gorgeous and very
yeah.
clean.
It looks really good. Like I guess the only other time I've really been able to watch any games here is when the women's games have been on,
Mm.
and they get pretty good crowds for those, especially the grand final. But there didn't look to be a lot of people at the ground for this game, and I got to see more of it.
What's actually quite funny is there was more people there. It was it wasn't super busy, but there was a good amount of people there. There's obviously the catering didn't think there was going to be as many people as there was
Yeah,
because they ran out of food at half time and
that's
had to start improvising because they were
that's
selling
fairly normal.
sausages. Yeah, they were selling hot dogs, but they'd run out of the dogs and the buns, so we got left. There were some sausages from the restaurant that they had to cut in half and give us Turkish bread rolls and all this sort of stuff. So they were just clearly improvising. But there was quite a lot of people there, but it wasn't packed, I would say.
Yeah, were they sort of more on one side of the ground? Then
Yeah,
yeah, that's probably the side where the cameras were because
yeah. So
we could see scatterings of people on the other side. Where
it probably looked way quieter than it actually was. So
yeah,
under where the camera is, so the coaches' boxes are where the camera came from as well.
yep,
Directly below that is the only covered seating for the whole. That's like a mini stadium
yeah,
there. I'm not sure what the capacity for that would be. A few thousand, I would guess, maybe. That was pretty packed, to be honest.
yeah. So the opposite side of the ground looked. It's like sort of smatterings of people, but not many. But
Yeah.
like over where it looks like there's like some indigenous artwork up on some fences up there,
Mm.
which looked really good. I quite liked them, and it looked
Oh,
like
the
that.
grounds are beautiful, but I think
Yeah,
it was hot early on, so I think everyone was flocking to the covered
yeah,
seating, which is where the camera was.
yep,
So it's obviously not going to pan down and show all the people sitting there. But
yeah,
there is seating all the way around, but it's kind of just either you sit on the grass lawn or there's like these concrete blocks that are just like big enough for you to sit on and put your legs down as well.
yep.
So most of that was pretty empty, but I think that was just because of the heat and there was shaded seating available. So I think most people just flocked to that side.
Yeah, and I did hear from a good mutual friend of ours that I didn't even know if they were at the ground, but they know a few players and
Mm.
mentioned that a lot of the AFL listed guys who played on Thursday night were there at that game as well.
Yeah, it looked like there was because there's a to the right, well, I guess from where we were sitting to the right hand side, goals, there's the facilities there, and there's 2 levels there, and there was a bunch of guys. It was too far away for me to work out who they were, but there was about a dozen guys sitting in Lions polos at the top level.
Yep.
I assumed that they were players or at least staff members or something. But yeah, it looked like there was a few guys there. There was so Darcy Wilmot was sitting in the crowd with the fans and a couple of his mates.
You said that, yeah.
But he wasn't in club gear. He was just kind of sitting, his casual stuff. But I think there was some more guys over there in club polos.
Yeah, and we've seen Hugh McCluggage in civvies at a few VFL games in Victoria over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen Harris Andrews at a few women's games as well. So, like, the boys obviously do take a bit of pride in the other teams at the club as well.
It's good to see them at the women's games, isn't it?
Yeah,
because you can tell that they genuinely care.
Yeah, and all the girls go to the men's games and just get.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you look on their socials and they're just really into it. And it's good for the culture of the club to have everybody on the same page.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it comes through in the broadcast, but when you go to the Gabba games, usually the camera pans around and put on the big screen. It'll pan up and it'll be a dozen AFLW players sitting there, just in casual attire, all sitting together up in the stands. So I don't know if that comes through to the broadcast, but they definitely show it on the ground to say, "Hey, look,
you do see it a fair bit." And look, I love seeing. It seems to be with us and the Swans and some of the other so-called interstate clubs. That they do show the groups of players, but when it's like Melbourne or Richmond, for example, all you see is the constant panning to Taylor Harris or Monique Conti on their own or with celebrities rather than with footballers.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, especially the Taylor Harris one.
Yeah, I actually saw Monique Conti out in public recently, and I just nodded my head to her, and she just kind of looked at me like, "Who are you, dickhead?"
Was Sarah Black rolling a red carpet behind her the whole time?
Yeah, God, they didn't start me. Like over in WA, the Freo supporters lose their minds about how much attention Harley Reid gets in the media. And I'm like, you should come to Victoria and see what it's like with Nick Dacos and Monique Conti. It is just like, or where I live, I've said this a million times, Patrick Dangerfield or Jeremy Cameron brief, the Geelong Addy brings out a special edition about it.
Yep, I believe it.
Like Joel Selwood buys petrol, it's like front page news. Joel Selwood went to the APCO servo, not one of the big name ones.
Yeah. No wonder we get so many guys up here that, move up here because it'd be part of the reason they move up here is because they don't want the media attention.
All right, that was our wrap up on the VFL game against Collingwood, which we won by a couple of points. We'll be back probably Wednesday evening with a chat about the AFL selection, and if we have the VFL team named at that stage as well, we'll probably just look into that a bit and see which academy guys are in, and if any of the AFL boys have been dropped down from the main team. Until then, enjoy, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Have a good one, and go Lions.